The date, July 8, 2014, will forever be etched in football history as the day when the unthinkable happened. Brazil, the spiritual home of Jogo Bonito, the beautiful game, suffered its most humiliating defeat in their storied football history. The 7-1 demolition by Germany in the World Cup semi-final, now infamously known as the Mineirazo, wasn't just a loss. It was a national tragedy that rewrote football history and left psychological scars that persist to this day. Let's get into it. The weight of history, Brazil's golden legacy. Before delving into the catastrophe, we must understand the magnitude of what Brazil represented in world football. With 5 World Cup victories, 1958, 1962, 1970, 1994, and 2002, Brazil wasn't just another team. They were the embodiment of football excellence. The yellow jersey carried an almost mythical status, worn by legends like Pelé, Garrincha, Zico, and Ronaldo. Brazilian football wasn't just about winning, it was about winning with style, flair, and an artistry that had become synonymous with their national identity. The 2014 World Cup was supposed to be Brazil's crowning moment. Hosting the tournament for the first time since 1950, the nation of 200 million people saw it as their destiny to win their 6th World Cup on home soil. The ghosts of the 1950 Maracanazo, when Brazil lost the final to Uruguay at home, were supposed to be exorcised. Instead, they would encounter a nightmare far worse than anyone could have imagined. The build-up, pressure cooker environment. The pressure on the Brazilian team was unprecedented. The $11 billion spent on hosting the World Cup amid social protests had created a tense atmosphere. The nation demanded nothing less than victory. The team had shown signs of emotional fragility throughout the tournament, particularly during their penalty shootout win against Chile in the round of 16, where several players broke down in tears. The absence of their talisman, Neymar, who suffered a vertebral fracture in the quarterfinal against Colombia, and captain Thiago Silva's suspension for accumulated yellow cards, had already dealt severe blows to the team's chances. However, no one could have predicted the catastrophe that was about to unfold. The collapse. 29 minutes of horror. The match began at 5 p.m. local time at the Estadio Mineirazo in Belo Horizonte. The passionate crowd of 58,000 sang the national anthem with typical Brazilian fervor, but within 29 minutes, their songs would turn to stunned silence. The Brazilian defense, a once proud unit renowned for its impenetrable wall, was about to face an onslaught so fierce, so relentless, that it would leave the football world in awe and the Brazilian team in tatters. Minute 11, a corner kick, a moment of vulnerability for any defense. Thomas Müller, the German predator, lurked unmarked. The ball found him, and with a swift strike, the net rippled. 1-0. A mere scratch, some might have thought, but it was the first drop of blood in what would become a massacre. Minute 23, records are meant to be broken, they say. But when Miroslav Klose broke Ronaldo's all-time World Cup scoring record, he did so by twisting the knife deeper into Brazilian hearts. 2-0. The crowd fell silent, their passionate songs now a distant memory. Minutes 24 and 26 entered Toni Kroos, the conductor of chaos. 2 strikes, 2 goals, and the score now read 4-0. The Brazilian players looked on in disbelief, their eyes reflecting the shock of a nation. This was supposed to be their moment, their time to shine, but instead, they were witnessing their own demolition. Minute 29, the 5th goal, a mere 6 minutes after the 4th, felt like the final nail in the coffin. Sami Khedira, another German warrior, delivered the blow. 5-0. The Brazilian defense, once a source of national pride, had crumbled. In just 18 minutes, Germany had scored 5 goals, an unprecedented feat on football's biggest stage. The Brazilian defense, once renowned for its organization, had completely disintegrated. The players looked shell-shocked, their faces reflecting the disbelief of millions watching worldwide. Tactical breakdown, Germany's masterclass. Germany's performance wasn't just about scoring goals, it was a tactical masterpiece orchestrated by coach Joachim Löw. The German system exploited every weakness in Brazil's emotionally fragile and tactically naive setup. High-pressing havoc, the Germans swarmed the Brazilian defense, refusing to give them a moment's peace. Their relentless pressure forced errors, creating opportunities to strike. It was like watching a pack of wolves hunting as a coordinated unit, with each player knowing their role in the kill. Lightning-quick transitions, Brazil's midfield became a no-man's land as the Germans struck with rapid counterattacks. The visitors exploited the space with precision, catching the Brazilian midfield off guard and leaving them scrambling to recover. It was a blur of red and black as the Germans raced forward, creating chance after chance. Mastering the space, the Germans found the gaps between the Brazilian lines. Midfield dominance, Kroos and Schweinsteiger bossed the midfield, exerting their influence on the game. They won the battles, controlled the tempo, and provided the platform for their team's attacking forays. Their passing range was exceptional, carving open the Brazilian defense with surgical precision. The German machine was operating at peak efficiency, with every player knowing their role perfectly. Their movements were synchronized, their passing precise, and their finishing lethal. This wasn't just a victory, it was a demonstration of modern football at its highest level. The psychological meltdown. The Brazilian team's psychological collapse was perhaps the most striking aspect of the match. The players appeared to be playing with the weight of 200 million expectations on their shoulders, and when Germany scored their early goals, that weight seemed to crush them completely. Sports psychologists would later analyze this match as a perfect example of how emotional pressure can lead to performance deterioration. The Brazilian players, already emotionally stretched from the tournament's intensity and Neymar's injury, simply couldn't cope with the rapid succession of goals. The second half, no mercy. If anyone expected Germany to show mercy in the second half, they were mistaken. The rest of the first half saw Germany maintain complete control of the game. Brazil, desperate to salvage some pride, tried to push forward but left themselves vulnerable to counterattacks. Germany, however, chose to slow the tempo, comfortable with their commanding lead. Minute 69, Andre Schürrle, brought on as a substitute, got on the scoresheet. A smooth passing move allowed Philipp Lahm to deliver a low cross into the box, where Schürrle was waiting. He calmly slotted the ball past Cesar, 6-0. The humiliation deepened for Brazil. Minute 79, Schürrle struck again, this time with a goal of breathtaking quality. Collecting a pass on the left side of the box, he unleashed a powerful strike that smashed off the underside of the crossbar and into the net, 7-0. The German bench erupted in celebration, while Brazilian fans sat in disbelief. It was a moment of sheer brilliance in an already historic match. Minute 90, in the dying moments, Brazil managed to score. Oscar received a long ball, past a defender, and fired a low shot past Manuel Neuer. The crowd cheered half-heartedly, but the goal meant little. The scoreboard still read 7-1, a margin of defeat unimaginable for the five-time World Cup champions. The final whistle brought scenes never before seen in Brazilian football, fans crying in the stands, players collapsed on the field, and German players trying to console their opponents while seemingly embarrassed by the scale of their victory. The shame of shames, the immediate aftermath. The Brazilian media dubbed it the shame of shames. Headlines worldwide struggled to capture the historic significance of what had just occurred. The match immediately entered football folklore as one of the most shocking results in sports history. A dark day dawns. Brazil, a nation that breathed football, suffered its first home competitive defeat in 39 years. The invincible team, the kings of the beautiful game, fell on their own turf. The pain was tangible, the shock reverberating through the hearts of Brazilians everywhere. A record-breaking rout. It wasn't just a loss, it was a rout of historic proportions. The margin of defeat, a staggering 7-1, became Brazil's biggest defeat margin in history. The goals conceded, a flood of German efficiency, tore apart the host's defense like paper. It was a defensive collapse of epic scale, leaving the Brazilian backline in tatters. Conceding like never before, the Brazilian net quivered under the onslaught, conceding a deluge of goals. The most goals conceded by Brazil since 1920, a time when the game was in its infancy. The German attack, a well-oiled machine, exposed every crack in Brazil's defense, creating a flood of goals not seen in a century. A World Cup semi-final for the ages. This wasn't just any match, it was a World Cup semi-final, a stage where legends are made and dreams shattered. The margin of victory, a colossal 6-goal difference, made it the largest margin of victory in a World Cup semi-final ever. The Germans had not just won, they had rewritten the record books in the process. The Mineirazo transcended sport to become a cultural watershed moment in Brazil. It led to soul-searching about the country's identity, which had been so closely tied to football success. The term 7-1 entered Brazilian vernacular as shorthand for any kind of disaster. Poor domestic league management and an emotional, rather than strategic, approach to the game further compounded Brazil's woes. The Brazilian Football Confederation (CBF) found itself under intense scrutiny, promising reforms to fix the glaring issues. The Brazilian Football Confederation (CBF) promised reforms, however. Critics argued that these changes were superficial band-aids on structural wounds. This crisis triggered global debate over Brazil's romantic football ethos versus modern systematic styles. Observers questioned if Brazil had lost its way, struggling to balance tradition and progress. Technical analysis: the numbers behind the disaster. The statistics tell a compelling story. Germany's shots on target yielded 7 goals, with possession and pass completion. Meanwhile, Brazil managed 13 shots for 1 goal, completed 70% of passes, and committed more fouls, 14 versus 11. Germany's superior ground coverage showcased their collective dominance. These sobering metrics reveal pivotal disparities, vividly shaping one of football's truly most dramatic matches, underscoring Germany's surgical precision and Brazil's vulnerability on home soil, culminating in an utterly unprecedented rout. Reference point: the human element. Some of the most powerful moments from that day were not the goals, but the human reactions. David Luiz raising Neymar's shirt during the anthem, a young boy weeping while clutching his replica trophy, and the German players' subdued celebrations. Elderly supporters, who had waited decades to witness Brazil's home triumph, were devastated by the loss. The Mineirazo quickly became a cultural touchstone, symbolizing overwhelming defeat, hubris, and the perils of complacency. Lessons learned: a watershed moment. The Mineirazo taught us 3 key lessons. 1. Emotional resilience is as vital as tactical preparation. 2. Individual brilliance must be supported by a cohesive system. 3. Success in modern football requires constant evolution and long-term planning. Brazil's slow, painful recovery from the Mineirazo, evident in further 2018 World Cup and Copa America disappointments, showed lingering wounds. This lesson reverberates beyond the pitch, reminding teams, coaches, and fans alike that calculated approaches often triumph over unbridled passion in competitive sports, ensuring consistent progress. Where were you during the 7-1 match? Could this be the biggest upset in football history? Join the conversation and let us know in the comments. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications to join our TBGC community.